Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Joining me this week, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing good. How are you, Trev?
I'm doing all right. Today we're going to be talking all about Star Wars Rebels, the Spark of Resistance two-part premiere of the Star Wars Rebels series. And we picked it in honor of the recent May the 4th celebrations. I kind of had this spot on the calendar reserved if we wanted to do like a Star Wars, if they were going to put out anything special for Star Wars Day. And really the only thing they ended up putting out was the Book of Boba Fett kind of making of like hour-long feature, which I was like, we could do that, or this was like the backup I had in reserve, and we kind of were like, yeah, let's do this one instead. So yeah, and also helps, get some excitement going for Obi-Wan Kenobi here in a couple weeks time. So yay for that. Before we hop in, what is your history with the Rebels series, Logan? Have you watched it?
I've seen this. I first watched Star Wars Rebels in, trying to think the timeline, 2020. It'd have been January of 2020, right before COVID. Basically, in January of 2020, I got strep throat, and because my tonsils have been working against me for 30 years, and so I was basically like, I'm just out of it, right? And I remember before I went to the doctor, because I didn't go to the doctor for a few days. Go to the doctor, kids. I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'm just like a bad throat. I was just like laying like utter husk of a human being, and I was like, I've called out for work. I'm just gonna like put on something on the TV, and I was like, oh, like I should check out Rebels. And I remember playing these two episodes in particular. And so when I watched it again this morning, I was like, oh yeah, like I remember this very vivid memories, except for now I'm not just like super sick. And then I probably watched like half of season one, kind of in that similar window, maybe a little bit more than half of season one. And then I didn't pick it up from there because I got busy, and also like it didn't click for me 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would say I have more than a surface level, but nothing too deep. Like I know almost more like particular scenes from the series, right? Like I've seen the Obi-Wan and Darth Maul clip numerous times because it's a really good clip, right? I've seen like Ahsoka and Vader's fight, right? Even though I haven't get to that in the actual show itself. I don't know the actual ending of the show, so I haven't been like spoiled in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I know like big beats they've done.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, this was one of the first things I watched when Disney Plus launched effectively. Like I was watching kind of the new shows that were coming out alongside the launch of Disney Plus, like The Mandalorian. The Imagineering Story was a big one that I really enjoyed at the time. High School Musical, the musical, the series, yeah. And then on kind of like in between weeks while we were waiting for new episodes of that, this was pretty much the first thing I binged because I'd heard great things about it, but I'd never had like access to Disney XD, which is where the series had originally aired and stuff. So I pretty much binged it I first couple weeks, especially because that was also when I was in between jobs. I had just left the community foundation, basically like because this was also like 2 weeks into the launch of that nerdy site. So it was a busy free time kind of period for me, but yeah, I kind of just binged through it, watched the whole thing, really enjoyed it. There definitely, I think, just by the nature of binging it, a lot of it like hasn't stuck as well. Like I remember the characters and I remember liking what I'd watched, but it was very much like I was watching that but probably also playing games or something like that. It was probably like I was half paying attention. I know like the big arcs and yeah, big beats, kind of like you're talking about. And I have like vague recollections of how the series ends and how it sets up in like leads into kind of the original trilogy era. But I'm sure if I like went back and rewatched it, especially with like just like the more stuff we've had now kind of tying into this era, be it, characters crossing into the Mandalorian or having watched, the extra season of Clone Wars or the Bad Batch that have come out since then that, continues to tie in and build on this animated universe. I'd probably like find new things to appreciate and enjoy. But yeah, it was certainly it's fun to revisit the crew of the Ghost here, it might just be kind of let me just kind of keep that going as I'm watching other things on Disney Plus. Before we dive into kind of the history lesson stuff, a little bit of housekeeping. Our next couple episodes are slated to be next week's going to be Chippendale Rescue Rangers, the Andy Samberg and John Mulaney movie that is coming out next Friday. And then following that, we're going to do the first couple episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Both of those launch on Fridays when we normally would have this show release. So the podcast will most likely be delayed a day or two. I'm probably leaning on record on Saturday to give people like Friday and Saturday time to watch the thing, and then basically this will probably go up Sundays for the next couple weeks instead of the normal Friday spot, just to accommodate the scheduling and stuff. But keep that in mind. Other than that, if you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So diving into the history lesson, series was originally released. This was confusing to me because IMDb says it was originally released September 26th, 2014, but Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure like Disney Plus itself, all point to October 3rd, 2014 as like the debut day. So maybe they did like a weird like special advanced premiere or something, and that's why IMDb is pulling these first episodes from a week earlier than that. Other TV releases of the time here back in 2014, you had Outlander, came out August 9th. I want to give a shout out to that because my sister is a huge fan of that show. BoJack Horseman came out August 22nd. Gotham had come out September 22nd, came out basically like a week or two before this. Blackish came out September 24th. The short-lived series that I enjoyed, Selfie, that was basically My Fair Lady, but for the Instagram age, with Karen Gillan and John Cho. That came out September 30th. Mulaney, another short-lived show, came out October 5th. And The Flash, which is one of the 3 of this that are still running, because I'm pretty sure Blackish is still going and Outlander's still going. The Flash debuted October 7th as the second regular series in the Arrowverse there. The runtime of these episodes, typically 22-ish minutes, this being a double episode premiere, comes in about 42 minutes. In the Star Wars timeline of things, we had season 6 of the Clone Wars, which was effectively like originally released as the Lost Missions on Netflix, had come out earlier this year, March of 2014. And then this came out October 3rd. And then The Force Awakens was a year away. December 18th, 2015 was the next Star Wars thing we got after after the beginning of Rebels. Roll call. We have 3 directors tagging in on this episode. Dave Filoni, of course, is kind of spearheading the series. He is currently the executive creative director at Lucasfilm, having worked on shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, as Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars, the movie and the series. After Rebels here, he would go on to work, of course, on The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and he is slated for the upcoming Ahsoka, which just started filming this week. Stephen G. Lee directed 6 episodes of Rebels and I caught this and had to call it out here in his IMDb. He was also an animator on the game 007 Agent Under Fire. Where does that one rank in the hierarchy of 007 video games, Logan? Is that on the good side? Is that on the bad side? Is that on the forgettable side?
I would say it is like the first one of like the EA Pierce Brosnan trilogy of Agent of Fire, Everything, or Agent of Fire, Nightfire, Everything or Nothing. They each get steadily better. It is a totally fun 2001 PS2 game, though, right? It has that weird thing where, like, due to whatever licensing issue, it's like the only one that doesn't use Pierce Brosnan's like likeness. It's like some weird, just like generic guy who like is sort of like a combination of like Pierce and like maybe Timothy Dalton kind of looking dude. But yeah, otherwise it's a fun one. It's got a great multiplayer mode.
Okay. And then rounding out the directorial team on this one, Steward Lee. Prior to this, had worked on Star Wars: The Clone Wars. He would go on to direct 15 episodes of Rebels. He's also worked on Star Wars: Resistance and Star Wars: The Bad Batch after this. The writers here, two writers on this episode, Greg Weisman.
Absolutely.
Who was the creator of Gargoyles.
Hell yeah, he was.
As well as he is a writer for episodes of Men in Black, the series, The Batman, Kim Possible, Ben 10, The Spectacular Spider-Man, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and he is the creator of Young Justice.
Hell yeah.
He would ultimately write 6 episodes of Rebels. And Simon Kinberg, also a co-creator on this. This was wild because, like, I think of Simon Kinberg as the guy who has failed twice to bring the Dark Phoenix saga to movies, and then realizing, oh, he also created Star Wars Rebels. Okay, I guess that's like, you know, that kind of balances the scales a little bit. But one of his earliest projects was X State of the Union.
Is that the Ice Cube one?
I believe that's the Ice Cube one, because I think the other one would have just been X.
Yeah.
with Vin Diesel. He also wrote Mr. and Mrs. Smith with
That's
Angelina
a great movie, to be fair.
Jolie and Brad Pitt. His first attempt at the at the Dark Phoenix story, X-Men: The Last Stand. He wrote the Sherlock Holmes film with RDJ.
Also a good movie.
He after the success of X-Men First Class, he got brought back into the X-Men fold for Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, and then X-Men Dark Phoenix. Fantastic Four, not Fantastic Found, or Fanforstic as it is often jokingly referred. He was also a writer on that. So a little bit more notorious for his work in the film space, but he is a co-writer of this and one of the co-creators of Star Wars Rebels. So shout out to Simon.
Very up
Kinberg.
And down. Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Sherlock Holmes, great movies, right? A lot of the other stuff is definitely more on the downbeat.
Especially like I remember like when X-Men Dark Phoenix, because he also directed X-Men Dark Phoenix, and when that one just bombed, everybody's like, why does he keep getting these opportunities? Why does he keep failing up in his career?
Getting these cracks at the bat.
And it's, I mean, like, realistically, it's he plays by the studio system. He knows the right people and gets things done under budget or whatever. That's so okay.
I can confirm, just for the record, X State of the Union is in fact the Ice Cube X movie.
That makes sense. Starring, we have Taylor Gray as Ezra Bridger. Prior to this, he was in a series called Bucket and Skinner's Epic Adventures, where he played the character of Bucket. So I don't know anything else about that series, but that was in his IMDb. Other than that, he's largely been like Ezra in things. That's been his kind of big role. Vanessa Marshall playing Hera Syndulla, voice actress since the late 90s. I pulled in a handful of projects here. A lot of them, admittedly, but also I feel like a lot of them basically were things I wanted to give a shout out to. She has been in video game stuff going back to Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. She played Olga something. I don't know the game well, but and she has like returned and reappeared in various Metal Gear things as that character. She was in her first Star Wars thing. She was in Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. I pulled this one in again for Logan. She was the voice of the car computer in 007 Nightfire and James Bond 007 Everything or Nothing. So
I got that voice in my ears right now. Don't you worry.
there you go. So the other two movies of that trilogy that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Or games?
That's actually right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other two, games.
She was in Knights of the Old Republic 2. Kingdom Hearts 2, she plays Nala, I believe. She was in the Spectacular Spider-Man. She was in the game Prototype. The Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. She was Gamora in the Guardians of the Galaxy TV series, animated series. And most recently, she's been in the series Harley Quinn, playing like Wonder Woman and various other roles in the DC verse there. Freddie Prinze Jr. playing Kanan Jarrus, of course, from I Know What You Did Last Summer, She's All That, the Scooby-Doo movies, Mass Effect 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, and just being an all-around Star Wars fanboy these days. Also did some writing for WWE for a time. So shout out to Freddie Prinze Jr.
Always.
Taya Sakar playing Sabine Wren. Following this, or around the same time as this, maybe, she also had a fairly prominent stint on The Good Place. She's also in the TV series of The Fugitive. Most recently, she was in the series After Party, and she's also appeared in quite a few Young Justice episodes.
Very good show.
Steve Blum playing Zeb Aurelios, as well as other characters in here. Has literally hundreds of credits, including some going back to the 70s and 80s, but he only got his start in like 1992. And what that is, I occasionally see that pop up, and I think I may have like misattributed people a couple times, but it's basically like he did the English dub of a thing that was released in the 70s or 80s, and then eventually kind of made their way stateside. He is known for characters like Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, Zeb from this, of course, and he is Wolverine in multiple Marvel projects, not the like animated X-Men series from the early 90s. He would come into the role later, starting around like X-Men Legends in the video game space of things. And he is also the voice of Sub-Zero. And in 2012, he was awarded the Guinness World Record for most video game voice acting credits. I would be very curious now, a decade later, to see how that holds up. But yeah, Steve Blum out there doing the video game scene for quite a while. Dave Filoni playing Chopper has done, of course, on the voice side of things, lots of miscellaneous Star Wars stuff. David Oyelowo playing Agent Callus. He's also been...
I know, I just blew my mind and I saw that.
Right? Yeah, I remember seeing him in like more
far too
in like prominent legitimate things, and then being
Selma,
like, oh yeah, right, he's playing Agent
Martin
Callus?
Luther King Jr. and then now he's just playing some
he is on the film side of things. He has been seen in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, The Help, Red Tails, Lee Daniels the Butler, Selma, and then following his work here, he would go on to be in A Wrinkle in Time, and most recently, Peter Rabbit 2.
You know what? This is just an extra fun fact to kind of bring That Nerdy Site cinematic universe together.
Yeah,
he'd be a very good James Bond as well.
Sure. James Arnold Taylor making a cameo, reprising his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars. He's been Obi-Wan Kenobi in most of the animated stuff. He's also, of course, as we've touched on in the past, the voice of Ratchet in Ratchet & Clank series, as well as Tidus in Final Fantasy X, and many other things. James Earl Jones also has a cameo in here as Darth Vader, of course. Darth Vader in a lot of things. He is an EGOT winner. He's in Coming to America, The Sandlot, The Lion King, you name it. He's James Earl Jones.
Also, he was the original actor in, I think it's just, is it Fences? Or is it Fence? It's Fences.
Yeah, Fences. Plural. Yep.
Phenomenal performance, by the way.
Yep. And lastly, Jason Isaacs, another one
also
where it's like, there's prominent, Jason Isaacs playing the Inquisitor. Of course, I always whenever I see Jason Isaacs, I think of him from The Patriot, because that's the first thing I would have ever seen him in. And for whatever reason, I really liked that movie when it came out. I thought the guerrilla fighting of the war was a cool thing. It is aged very poorly with just the general Mel Gibson-ness of it.
Were you at were you part of the PAX East? I think 2018 or 2017 viewing of that, where there was like a whole bunch of us who all just like watched The Patriot together.
I don't believe so. I don't remember that.
Very good.
He, of course, also probably better known or best known as playing Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter series, but he's also in Avatar: The Last Airbender, as well as Star Trek Discovery.
In the first season.
Yep.
Right?
In the
Spoilers.
galactic timeline of things, diving into the trivia side of things, as we tend to do when we do Star Wars stuff, in the galactic timeline, this takes place in the year 5 BBY, before the Battle of Yavin. Other notable events in 5 BBY, the only one that's like not a Rebels-centric thing is the mission to Temsi Prime occurs, in which Jyn Erso is abandoned by Saw Gerrera, which would, of course, lead to their estrangement going into Rogue One.
Is there there probably is, like, is Jyn supposed to be a certain age in Rogue One?
Yeah, and I don't remember what it is. Like, she was born, like, I want to say, like, 5 or 10 years before the Clone Wars or something like that. Or maybe like around the time of the Clone Wars.
Right, yeah, that's like my thing.
Yeah. I do have I have the ages of like Ezra and stuff here later. Right. Other notable events of 5 BBY are effectively the first half of season 1 of Rebels, going up through the Out of Darkness episode, which, depending on if you count this episode as 1 or 2 episodes, is episode 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's funny. I also I was doing some researches on that as well. I saw all the way through episode 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Breaking Ranks. I remember that episode. And then Out of Darkness, which would have been the last one in 5 BBY, and Empire Day, which had been the first in 4 BBY. I don't have any remembrance of like seeing those episodes.
Yeah.
And Jyn Erso is 21, apparently, in Rogue One.
Okay. Kanan refers to Zeb as a, quote, rare hairless Wookiee in this episode. Zeb is based on early concept art for Chewbacca by Ralph McQuarrie. This is the first on-screen appearance of the planet Kessel and its spice mines that were originally mentioned by C-3PO back in Star Wars, and the infamous Kessel Run, of course. We, of course, get to see more of it in Solo, A Star Wars Story. In typical Star Wars fashion, we get a Wilhelm scream heard when a stormtrooper is shot by Ezra's slingshot and falls down a mining pit. Yep. Agent Callus's Imperial I-class Star Destroyer is called the Lawbringer. The season premiere was preceded by 4 short previews that introduced the main cast, which you can see on Disney Plus under the like entry Star Wars Rebels shorts. They are The Machine and the Ghost, which is basically Kanan, Hera, and Chopper escaping and fighting TIE fighters in space. Art Attack is a Sabine-centric introduction. Entanglement is a Zeb-centric, like he's fighting off a whole platoon of stormtroopers. And Not What You Think, aka Property of Ezra Bridger, is what it's called on Disney Plus, is obviously an Ezra Bridger introduction. Going back to the Ralph McQuarrie, Lothal's capital city is modeled after McQuarrie's concepts for Bespin, as well as Alderaan, as seen in the 1995 book, The Illustrated Star Wars Universe. The first season takes place 14 years after the event of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and 5 years before the events of Star Wars A New Hope. Between each subsequent season and the next, there is a time jump of about 6 months. Although there are many similarities between Ezra Bridger and Disney's Aladdin, both in his appearance and the fact that they straight up call him a street rat in this first episode, Dave Filoni has insisted that his inspiration is actually from Ralph Macchio as the Karate Kid.
Which we also love. So.
And then lastly, tying this back to date stuff, it is later revealed over the course of the series that Luke and Princess Leia, of course, were born the day after the formation of the Galactic Empire, and Ezra Bridger was born basically the day of the of Order 66 and all that stuff, which makes Ezra Bridger one day older than Luke and Leia. And by the time Episode 7 of The Force Awakens rolls around, Luke, Leia, and Ezra would all be 53 years old.
I'm sure they'll find a way to kill him off as well.
There is
some bitterness
without getting into spoilers for the end of Rebels, there is significant mystery about what happens to Ezra, because his fate at the end of the series is quite unknown, and it's presumed that it will be explored in the Ahsoka series coming up.
Ahsoka series is set in the same time period as The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
Okay, so like a couple years after Jedi?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, what did you think hopping back into Star Wars Rebels here, Logan?
I think it's good, right? I mean, I think the message I sent in Slack was just like, Star Wars is real good, guys. Yeah, I mean, I think it has its growing pains, like any kind of pilot animated series typically does, right? Pilots in general. But for me, it all comes together so well in the very end of the episode where, Obi-Wan is basically speaking, and it kind of starts doing like the montages of the different people, right? And their reactions, right? And like his line as he kind of goes, just like very rough paraphrase, which is like, we have to hold out and hold on until eventually one day we'll find a new hope, right? To kind of bring balance back to the Force kind of thing. And as the music swells, as he says, a new hope, right? And all of us in our minds know that that is Luke. And I think one of my favorite things about Star Wars that we talked a lot about on the Summer Star Wars podcast series last year we did, you can go check it out on youtube.com/thatnerdy site, is that, I think kind of kept coming back to the idea that the original trilogy is sort of the nucleus of everything Star Wars, right? Everything Star Wars ultimately is pulling something or doing something from the original trilogy, whether it's doing an homage, a reference, whether it's trying to subvert that, right, or kind of deconstruct it. It's all kind of pulling from those threads because those are kind of the heart of it all. And I think few beats hit more effectively for me, and I think a lot of people, than referencing these characters without even having to use their names, right? Just saying A New Hope and having that music kick in when you do, your mind goes to Luke, right? And what that's going to be, right? And I think A New Hope in the context of Star Wars is such a powerful phrase, right? And one that carries so much extra weight to it. And so, yeah, it brought it all together so well for me. Ezra's actually a little bit older than I thought he was. I actually probably would have pegged him closer to 11 or 12. So in my head, when I watching this one, it was oh, right, because it's cool because Luke will be an older person for him eventually to meet up, and they're actually going to be, almost literally the same age.
Mm-hmm. One other that I didn't pull is Sabine is effectively 2 years older than Ezra. She's 16.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
she's younger than I thought she was, I guess.
Yeah, she was born during the Clone Wars, and then Ezra was born basically at the end of the Clone Wars, right there alongside Luke and Leia.
And most of the stuff about ages in Star Wars, you only need to think about it too hard before it's I'm going to care about this as much as it makes sense to me. And then when it doesn't make sense, I'm just going to kind of be whatever. Yeah, sure, they're ages. Because we also get into don't worry, in 4 years, no one will even know what a Jedi is, guys. But no, I think it's really effective what it's trying to do, right? I like this crew a lot. It, to me, actually has a little bit of a Fallen Order kind of vibe to it. And I think similarly kind of set on the ship and this kind of motley crew.
Being hunted by Inquisitors.
Right, I think I kind of like that, almost with the benefit of having played Fallen Order and then now come into Rebels again. And yeah, you know, I wish that the first season of Star Wars animated series would start off stronger.
Sorry, that just reminded me. I was probably also playing Star Wars Rebel, or I was probably playing Jedi Fallen Order as I was like originally watching this. So I was getting a whole bunch of like, hit Jedi in hiding during the during this era.
Beats, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, I think it is good. It has me excited to watch some more, but also just kind of be like, I just want to skip to like the end of season 1 and then just jump into season 2. Energy to it, but yeah, I think it's a great start for the series. Mm-hmm. Certainly stronger than Clone Wars ever had.
Yeah, I think Rebels benefits from a narrative through line.
Yes.
It's still, I mean, even the first series, like first episode or first season, is a lot of like mission of the week kind of things, but there's still like they all benefit from, there's an overarching, we are, the foundations of what will be the rebellion in Star Wars Episode 4 kind of like vibes to it. And as that kind of expands into the broader world, I think is where that really you get to start seeing, even in, and we didn't necessarily watch it for this, but even in the episode after this, it's a mission and R2D2 and C3PO are there, and like the crew of the Ghost kind of like gets tangled up with them, and that episode ends with R2D2 and C3PO being like back with Bail Organa and like the realization that he was kind of like aware of this other rebel cell that is the Ghost crew, and kind of eventually the series will build to like banding all those people together, and kind of creating this like the underdogs that are the Rebel Alliance by the end of Rogue One, effectively. And even Chopper and Hera and the Ghost basically are cameos in Rogue One as well, because I think Gary will eventually write a couple episodes of Rebels too, so shout out to that. I enjoy I enjoy the team that they have for this, and I think there's a lot of like fun dynamics at play too. Like in particular, I love the idea of like Kanan and Hera being a couple, despite us having been told Jedis aren't supposed to have attachments and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And also, I didn't mention it earlier, but also shout out to Kanan, who in the Bad Batch premiere, basically you get to see his Order 66 moment, and Freddie Prinze Jr. came in and kind of played that character. So he was a youngling Padawan age when Order 66 happens. But I like the dynamic that like they have. I like the idea. I love Sabine just as a character, just this bright, colorful Mandalorian like teen rebel who, as the show goes on, you find is basically like a dropout of the Imperial Academy, or like she was in the Imperial Academy and left to go join the rebels and be a rebel. Zeb being like heavily alluded to as like the last of his species kind of thing, is a fascinating kind of like dynamic for that character. And Chopper, as Dave Filoni has described him, as basically like the anti R2D2, whereas like R2D2 is like your lovable pet. Chopper is, I think he even describes him as like R2D2 is like your lovable dog, and Chopper is the cat that will push that glass of milk off the table. Right. Chopper is nothing but sass, and I think there's a lot of like a fun dynamics there, as well as this like hint of they all kind of have a little bit of Han Solo energy to them. Like they're not they're not all good. Like they're definitely doing things better than the Imperials are, but right. they're not afraid to get their hands dirty or. Right. Like, I mean, even the introduction we get to Ezra in this of like, he helps out the guy and then steals the guy's food. Just to like that gives such fun color for that character, that like it'll be interesting to see how that, ends up juxtaposing with the Jedi philosophies and beliefs and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I'm a sucker for the like the line near the end of the second part of like, are you gonna fill me in on the secret? And Kanan being like, kid, I'm about to fill everyone in on the secret, as he reveals himself to be a Jedi. And I like even his lightsaber. I love that it's like a 2-part thing that he has to like connect, and how he kind of like brings that together because he's been in hiding, and is routinely in hiding, that like he doesn't even want the opportunity for it to accidentally go off in combat or something like that. He's much more like he's shooting blasters and stuff like that. I also really like the opening like sequence we get of Ezra seeing this crew kind of like try and pull off this heist, and then Ezra basically just like interrupting it himself. But in particular, as I was watching it this time, I was like, God, they do the chase here so much better than it was done in Solo, or so much better than the Vespa chase that we got in Boba Fett. They just do a really good job with like a speeder chase sequence at the beginning of this one. I think there's just a lot of fun to be had around this crew, that will then, very quickly grow into a family dynamic, and the different like relationships that are kind of like teased and initially set up here, even in this first episode, that will then kind of grow and blossom throughout the course of the series. I don't know if there's anything else. I also do want to give a shout out to Agent Callus. Is just like a baddie who like just completely yeets his own guy when his guy's like, is this your first time seeing a Jedi? He just like kicks him down to his death.
And the fact that it showed it, like the stormtrooper actually falling to his death, was like, I was like, wow, okay, that's
this is definitely like whereas Clone Wars I think can often be like Star Wars for a very young audience. It has obviously its darker things. Like Rebels strikes me as like Star Wars for a teen audience, because you've got like graffiti and spray paint as like just one of the characters' like core traits. She is like 16 teen angst kind of stuff. Ezra's obviously going to be going through a lot of those kinds of same feelings, and it's, I think both of them play as interesting not mirrors maybe, but like just interesting comparisons against Luke, and what we get as like Luke's introduction into this world in A New Hope and the original trilogy and stuff. And it's just, it is a lot of fun. I have a good time when I watch this crew get together. Any favorite moments or any other thoughts you want to share before we dive into the grades?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on the big one for me, which was him yeeting off the dude, like you said. I like Ezra's journey in the 2-part episode a lot, right? From his, street rat kind of like graffiti artist looking like I'm a grungy teen kid here energy, to kind of the path being laid before him. I think is a really cool moment. I always am a sucker for a good hard zoom on a character's face and then cut to the character behind him just completely gone, and we got that in this episode, and I always love it. And then I think for me, obviously the seeds of what Rebels will become and the area it's exploring, I find kind of inherently maybe more more interesting than Clone Wars, right? I like the fact this is more like future Logan knowing the ship, but like the fact that it's like 4 seasons that are tight instead of 8, I think Clone Wars ends up having.
I think 7.
7 or 8, 7. Right. Just like make it's 7 over a 3-year period versus 4 in a 4-year period, right? Just like, I enjoy that, right? Like, I like the fact that it is going to be building out more of a through line throughout all the things, and it's kind of exploring kind of the early days of the kind of rebellion and rebel alliance, and that kind of forming into more of a cohesive force. And so like I think it's a great start for like a series pitch as well. And I guess the last big thing for me was like watching it on my nice TV now. On like the PS4, I was just like, it looks really nice. Like the way that like the light is glistening off of like the soldiers and like the facial animations and just like everything about it. Like it's a very good looking show. That I also was like really surprised upon like rewatching it while not delirious. So I was very happy with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember at the time people didn't like the
That's what I
change
thought
in
as well.
animation style.
Yeah.
But I think like I think it fits. It's more like
Yeah.
it's older kind of audience and tone and
I agree.
the like the like as we get closer to A New Hope, I think I like how like just the designs work for a lot of the characters as well myself.
He's not in, I mean like that the big one for me is like he's not in this episode obviously, but like I love the fact for what they did with Vader in this, right? And like using like the original art basically design of him from back from the 70s is such a cool touch and it's such a cool look for that character.
Yeah, or even what we do get of him in this, and we get like the hologram with like almost the CRT lines and stuff like that. It does have kind of that like old school tech feel in modern animation setting and stuff like that. I also like you touched on kind of liking Ezra's arc. I love Ezra's arc in this because he is that like loner. He's out for himself. That's all. And then he kind of gets brought in, and then he like is almost immediately like. They absolutely meet his expectations. Nobody's gonna hold themselves out for them. Zeb basically like grabs him, launches him back, unknowingly that was going to throw him into Callus, and basically then they leave and stuff. And Ezra is captured and is like, they're not gonna come back for me. Why would they ever come back for me? I'm a nobody. They don't even know me. And then they do go back for him, and it also is the like the Rey and Force Awakens thing of they go back for him, but he also finds his own way out. So it makes like their getaway very quick, but it is like it is a point to him that like maybe there are good people in this galaxy. And you know, even the Tarkin town sequence where they like he only knew that they had smuggled some guns, but like when they take the food to the people in need, like realizing that they can be a force of good, and people are thanking him, and he even says like I didn't do anything. But I think he gets like that high of realizing what he could do. And then, like ultimately him still having the pickpocket intentions, and like obviously steals the holocron. He steals the lightsaber. Kanan very aware the whole time, and basically like says, you can keep that, or you can come back with us and I'll train you. I think sets up a very fun dynamic that is different than the Obi-Wan Luke dynamic we know so well. And I, from just a broader narrative storytelling perspective, especially as like this was one of the first new like canon things we got kind of in this era, I as much as I love the idea, or as convenient as the idea of there were no Jedis until Luke gets brought back into the mix, I like that is a ginormous universe, and there could have been a few other stragglers out there amongst the stars. So I like getting to see some of those stories. And, obviously we don't get a ton of them, but like the story obviously here of Kanan and Ezra, story we alluded to of in Jedi Fallen Order. Ahsoka's obviously out there still doing things around this time, and will kind of make her way into the Rebels storyline at some point. I think like Order 66 was efficient, but not like 100%. Right. I appreciate that, like, and so much so that the Inquisitors kind of get brought up to snuff out anybody that they missed.
It's interesting. See, now we're like on the cusp of a Star Wars rabbit hole here a little bit, but like the Inquisitor shit is always one of the things that like I find to be in like a gray area in terms of how much I like Inquisitors in various Star Wars content, right? Like mainly because part of the thing for me about the original trilogy that makes it important, right, is, I mean, a lot of things, I guess, but one thing in particular in Luke's arc, right, is that, like, I like the idea that Luke is the last of the Jedi, right? Like, trained by Obi-Wan dies, trained by Yoda dies, and then, like, Luke is left, right? And, like, that having that kind of, like, resonance in Empire and Return of the Jedi, and then it kind of builds out from him. And I understand why they have, like, all these other kind of, like, either Jedi or, like, younglings who are now, like, teens kind of things, like Luke, or straight up Luke's age in Ezra. But I'm always like, it makes it a little bit less cool for me. But it's also like, I enjoy getting these kind of, like, side shadow stories kind of thing to, like, the main thrust. And also, like, they always do this really fun thing of, like, once you get to, like, the Battle of Yavin, they just sort of, like, bubble it off again, and are like, it's just this is happening. Their stories always either end before here or start after it, right? And so it's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. It's just Luke again, right? Like, even with Ezra being like, who knows what happened to him, because now we have to do Luke's story, right? So I think they're sort of aware of that issue too a little bit, and, like, that's why they structure it in this way. Also, like, Cal Kestis from Fallen Order, obviously. But yeah, like, the Inquisitors also, I think, are kind of silly just because it's like, we have, like, Vader, right? And I think it's like the Inquisitors exist just because, like, they want people to fight more things than just Vader, right?
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, how can we compromise it to not have them be Jedi or Sith, but, like, get around the rule of two rule kind
exactly,
of thing. It's,
yeah.
like, definitely, like, a weird, like, all right.
Yeah, it's, man, George really screwed us with that rule of two, so
yeah.
These guys aren't going to be Sith, but they're going to be trained in lightsaber stuff, and they're going to be Force sensitive, but they're not... Right. They are specifically not Darth Vader's, like, apprentices and kind of stuff.
And it's very much the same logic when people talk about, like, my issue with, like, the Jedi, where it's like, well, they're not Jedi. That's the first thing you need to understand, right? Like, they're very much not of the Order. They're Force sensitive. They have lightsabers. They can do this stuff. And it's like, we're very particular here, but, like, it's fine. Like, we get cool Star Wars stories out of it. It's not a big deal. It's like, whatever.
Even the Obi-Wan kind of, like, the montage voiceover you alluded to talks about, like, the children of the Force, you know, will rise up as the New Hope, allowing for there to have been. It's not that, like, especially in the era of, like, well, midichlorians became a thing, so it's not like midichlorians just got suddenly wiped out for a generation.
Right.
Or I guess it's not Obi-Wan that says it's Vader that is that says Palpatine.
He would know about them.
Palpatine, yeah. Palpatine is the one who is like bestowing the Inquisitors on the quest to wipe out the children of the Force. That's what it is. But yeah, it's definitely one of those, like, okay,
yeah,
like, we obviously in order to have lightsabers in anything in this era, we had to kind of retcon that idea, and I'm okay with that if you can tell fun stories. Right.
That's sort of again, like, we talked about it so much on the Summer of Star Wars, and it's so weird. Like, I think when you were each, I mean, I guess I can speak for myself too, but you watched all the Star Wars movies with me. Like, we're each two very big Star Wars fans, right? And, like, I think we each agree on a really central tenet of our Star Wars fandom, which is, like, don't worry, man. Just, like, enjoy what you're getting. Like, Star Wars is awesome for a lot of reasons. Its lore is not necessarily one of them. Just, like, don't worry about it. Like, the more you don't think about Star Wars sometimes, the better off you're going to be about lore shit, right? Like, enjoy, like, the themes it is undergoing. Because Star Wars is great about themes from the very beginning. Logic and lore and, like, you know, chronology, all that kind of shit, it's less good at that. Don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself out about it. I did that a lot as a kid. It made my life way easier when it's just like, you know what? All of it's unnecessary. Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Cool. Any final thoughts? Are we good to dive into our grades?
Let's grade them, man.
All right, yeah. Report card, grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give a grade to on The Spark of Resistance, Star Wars Rebels?
I'll say B-, a B or B-. I don't know if we're doing full letter grades or not. I think it's totally a good start to the series. It's obviously got issues, like I think most pilots do. Right, like, this seems like a series that just gets stronger over time, as they kind of find their foot and find their voice a bit more and kind of focus on that kind of more serious story of the rebellion rising. But I think It has moments that work. The ending is really good. I think the arcs the character go on feel totally real and deserved after the two-parter. Yeah, I think it's a B. I think it's totally a great start to the series.
Cool. I'm a little bit hotter on it than you. I'm gonna give it an A. I think it's a solid start. I really enjoy the cast that like it gives us, and the dynamics that we're gonna get between this crew, and it I think it serves as a good like jumping off point. Like I watch this and I want to see, these relationships form and grow, and I want to see Ezra get trained, and I want to see, especially having seen it before, I'm excited to see again like where a lot of these stories go, and that build up. There is a general excitement of like getting to see this time of the era, which even from Wikipedia is really only explored here and in some of the comics. Like I said, in 5 BBY, the only things out there are like a Jyn Erso kind of like the book to kind of set up her character for Rogue One, and Star Wars Rebels stuff. So we don't get a ton yet in this, just before episode 4 kind of time frame, and it's a fun, exciting time to kind of explore, to see why a rebel alliance was needed. Like obviously we know, because we've always known, because that's how this story was structured, that the Empire is bad, but getting to actually see it and see the like just the absolute like dickery of Imperial guards and their foot on the neck of the populace. It's cool to see. Like you want to see the underdogs rise up eventually and take out a Death Star. So yeah, I enjoy it. A solid A start from me. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. Shocker, it's going to be a bunch of Star Wars stuff. You have the Star Wars Rebels shorts. You have Star Wars Resistance, which admittedly is a series I've still never watched myself. It's a weird one where like it's not in the animation style of the Clone Wars and Rebels here, but it is more. It is basically like a this, but for the sequel trilogy kind of era, or it's the Resistance filling in the gaps of the sequel trilogy kind of stuff. So maybe it's more Clone Wars. I've never actually sat down and watched that. Star Wars: The Clone Wars series, which if you want some D+ thoughts on that, you can go watch D+ episode 14, where we dove into the Battle of Umbara arc. You can watch Star Wars: The Bad Batch, and you can watch the Disney Plus episode 73, where I think it was Cameron and I, maybe me and somebody dove into the premiere of The Bad Batch, the Aftermath episode, again, where you can see a young Kanan. Star Wars: The Mandalorian. You can watch D+ show episode 45 for the Mandalorian season 1. Star Wars: The Clone Wars movie, which coincides with D+ show episode 84 from our Summer of Star Wars last year. And then the last two are Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures and Lego Star Wars All-Stars. More Lego animated stuff. Extracurriculars. You watching anything else on Disney Plus these days, Logan?
No.
I before seeing Doctor Strange, in the Multiverse of Madness, I watched the original Doctor Strange recently. Really enjoyed the visuals on that one. I did hop into the Disney Gallery, the Book of Boba Fett, the making of Book of Boba Fett. Watched that this last week. It's solid. It does, much like the Mandalorian season 2 making of, spends a lot of time on like, here's how we did the de-aging technology for Luke Skywalker. And in particular, it's like, here's all the lessons we learned from doing it in Mandalorian season 2, because we knew we were going to do a lot more of it in Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
But it's a cool little,
this is an aside, I guess.
Yeah.
But since I wasn't on the Book of Boba Fett season wrap up, I did some of the earlier episodes, but not like the final one. How did you feel about deep fake Luke in the Book of Boba Fett series?
I I thought it was better than better than the Mandalorian, certainly.
Sure.
I It's obviously always going to be a little distracting because we know that it is a CGI amalgamation kind of thing.
Right.
But it didn't take me out of it. Especially in the context of, for a lot of that, he's talking to a puppet. Um, so it's like I'm not really watching anything real on the screen. um,
Yeah, that's a
but
funny way to think
I
about
was
it.
still I enjoy it because I love that it gives us the opportunity to see Luke stories in this era. And in particular, like in the book of Boba Fett kind of making of, they had like it is Mark Hamill on set there filming those scenes. Basically, they film all the scenes like two ways. Once with Mark Hamill, once with the face and body double, and then
Who
they kind
looks like Mark Hamill? Who looks like a young Mark
yeah,
Hamill?
who
That's like the
looks
thing. That's like my
exactly.
thing. Like you could have just used him.
Yeah.
Um,
So they combine the two of those and then throw in like deep fake and kind of technology and stuff on top of that. Um, and the weirder thing is often just like his voice. Just because obviously Mark Hamill doesn't actually sound like that anymore. So the fact that they're
yeah, he's 30 years older.
yeah,
Right?
they're taking his performance and then running that through like AI filters and like pulling from like audio that he did, in that era and stuff. Like none of it bothers me enough where I'm like, oh, this I don't like watching this. And so it really is like they do it well enough that I'm sitting there watching that episode, like especially like when I was watching it, that night or whatever, smiling like an idiot of like we get to see Luke training little baby Yoda and Ahsoka's there, and like this is just a cool thing that um like certainly eventually can wear off the novelty, and it, and maybe eventually they will have to cast Sebastian Stan and do it for like reels or something like that, and won't be able to rely on this technology. But like while we've got Mark Hamill still kind of willing to and able to and like excited to play the character and do these things, it's a cool little thing that I enjoyed. How about you?
I think that I don't disagree entirely. I've got like I think I like for these kind of things I typically err more on the side of like show me less but like give me like teases of things, right? Like I think part of what makes these moments special is like just like seeing him in like a cloak, right? And not necessarily the face, and just like knowing who it is, right? And like getting like a few lines, and that's all we need. And it's like, great, that was such a powerful moment because we know it's Luke, right? Like, kind of thing, right? Or even just like the lightsaber moment, like that carries so much, I think. When it's just like him and Ahsoka and Baby Yoda and like broad daylight talk, and it's like, I don't need this much of Luke, right? Like, I'm a little bit of the opinion that, like, and Luke's my favorite Star Wars character, and it's like, I also am so utterly happy and content with Luke's journey and Luke's arc that like I could get nothing else from Luke and be totally happy with my life, right? Like I think his like trilogy arc is literally perfect, right? And so it's like I don't need more of that, right? I will say to your point though, I think there might genuinely not be a single better ambassador in all of Star Wars community fandom, like among all the cast and crew, even up to George Lucas down, than Mark Hamill.
Mhm.
No one who has had to be the face of the thing for what 1977 is what going on 40 plus years now at this point.
Yeah, 45 years. That's
yeah,
it.
45 years. Yeah.
When Obi-Wan comes out, that's basically the 45th anniversary.
Yeah, so a great point. Yeah, for 45 years, this has been his entire life, right? Like I mean, basically from the summer 77 onwards, he if we admit it or not, like he knew this is gonna be the rest of my life. Like this is gonna be the thing I'm known for. Certainly by the time episode 6 came out, this is the thing you're gonna be known for, right? And
but then there's also that like weird, like 15 years between episode 6
6
and
and
episode
1.
1, and it's not like he came back to do episode 1 or anything like that, but
No.
obviously like it reinvigorated a Star
and
Wars
they obviously like
community and
re-released in the theaters before that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think because like Harrison Ford's relationship with Star Wars
Yeah.
is fraught, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And even Carrie Fisher at times, I think, has had kind of a more arm's length relationship, more understandably, I think, for her in terms of just like her relationship with some of the fandom. But like Mark has always been so game, and like part of this is just like Adam Scott had just reshared on Twitter like last weekend the clip of him meeting Mark Hamill, right? And like it is just, and it's like one of the scripts that, like, every time I see it, it gets me so much. Where it's like it is just this level of, I think, every day Mark Hamill probably meets someone who like has that reaction to him, right? And like I just feel like he's such a genuine dude, right? Who like can be so game for that and be so excited to see his people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know what it does to hear probably daily like this is one of the best moments of my entire life, but it does something to you, and like it can do something bad probably and like make you jaded maybe, but I just feel like it like almost fuels him in like a positive way, like he's like the Star Wars Mr. Rogers. And so like I always like Mark Hamill for that as well.
There's another moment. I saw it first in GIF form before I actually watched the Book of Boba Fett episode, making of episode. But Rosario Dawson it does like an interview in the episode where she's talking about that Mark Hamill was kept a secret from her even until she was on set. Like her script pages said Plo Koon because that's what they typically have been doing, where like when they, Plo Koon is the Jedi Master that's coming in to, save baby Grogu or whatever. And so she was like thinking that Grogu was going to be learning from him or whatever. And it's not until she's like on set, like after like makeup and stuff, she gets out there and sees Mark standing there, and like you in the GIF that that is making the rounds, and it's pulled from this episode, like she just turns and she's just so giddy that like it's Luke Skywalker there that she's about to have scenes with. And so it's it is a very like he's absolutely such a great force for positivity around the stuff. And so as long as they want to keep doing it, and as long as he wants to keep doing it,
right.
Like I love that even in the non-Luke things, like he's like always game to hop in and do like a vocal cameo and stuff. Like we talked about in the in Mandalorian season 1, like he's the voice of the droid in the cantina, which even that is like a fun full circle Easter egg thing of like, we don't serve their kind in here. Now it's now droids are serving in the cantina, and it's voiced by Mark Hamill. So lots of fun stuff there. If it, whether like what your thoughts are, I like a lot of people, I think, Book of Boba Fett didn't really do a ton. It got me more excited to see the Mandalorian when it comes back, certainly. But I think it's the making of, especially as I've enjoyed a lot of these making of things, is really cool. There's a lot of cool like Robert Rodriguez talking, like Robert Rodriguez just jamming with Tamura Morrison, because that's how he likes to bond with his actors. Like they're just doing a jam session and like singing some jazz about being on Tatooine and being a bounty hunter and stuff. Like, all right, yep, this is a thing. But it was a cool little thing. And then just the last little thing, I sat down and rewatched Ratatouille this week as well, because in a follow up from our Pixar stuff, as well as it gets a fun little like hat tip in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It has been on my mind certainly since seeing that movie, so it was fun to hop back in and enjoy Ratatouille. Just a lovely little feel good jaunt down old Pixar lane. But that is gonna do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Logan, for joining me to talk about Star Wars Rebels, the Spark of Resistance, or just Spark of Resistance. You follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Logggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I will give a shout out to That Nerdy Site Show, as well as That News You Care About. Always good stuff happening over there on those two podcasts. Go check them both out.
Cool. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. I will give a shout out to our other podcast, That Bond Show. We are nearing an end. We are the episode that will go up tomorrow, if you're listening to this the day it goes out, is the last of the Brosnan era films, Die Another Day. So you can go check out our thoughts on that, and then we got 5 Craig movies to go. Spoilers, we've already recorded one of those, and
it's very good.
Very good movie. Go check out That Bond Show, our YouTube only show over on youtube.com/thatnerdysite every Saturday morning for at least the next 6 more weeks. I don't know, we might do like one final like wrap up.
That's what we're gonna do. That's my game thing. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
we just made that call on air. But yeah, you can follow all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed, and may the Force be with you.